Welcome to the first in a series of political candidate forums in advance of the August 23rd primary election. This forum is a cooperative production of the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, the Tallahassee Democrat, and WFSU Public Media. Our first group of candidates is running for Lyon County Board of County Commissioners, District 1. I'm Tom Flanagan from WFSU Public Media. I'm joined by William Hatfield from the Tallahassee Democrat and Danielle Irwin from the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee. We'll be questioning the candidates on various topics, so let's get a quick look at the ground rules and meet our candidates.
The candidates for County Commission District 1, sitting left to right, are Terrence L. Barber, Donna Pearl Cotterell, and Bill Proctor, the incumbent in this race. However, you will note that Bill Proctor is not yet here. We are told he will be arriving shortly, so he will be joining us in progress. For those watching us on social media, please hit the share button and help all your friends see today's discussion too. Here's how the forums will work. We will rotate which candidates get to answer first. So you can see we've got alphabetical order going on. We have a lot of questions, so we're going to ask the candidates to keep your answers. It's going to be about 60 seconds. Some will be, 30 seconds or a minute 30, but we will specify ahead of each question. I'll keep, I'm not keeping time, but we are keeping time. We have a bell which will ding when your time is up. It will sound like this. There you go. You don't have to come to a dead stop right then, but finish your sentence and we'll move on. In the middle of the forum, we will also have the fabled lightning round. That is when we ask you to keep your answers to just one sentence. At the end of the forum, we will give you 90 seconds to make the case directly to voters and share your website or any other important information.
And if you're watching us on Facebook and you have questions for the candidates, go ahead and type them in the comments, and we have volunteers monitoring those. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Time is very limited. You can improve the chances that your question will be asked if you keep it brief, polite, and make it a question applicable to all the candidates. Any questions before we start?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. All right, then let's jump in with the first question.
And before we do that, folks, we will make note of the fact that the third candidate in the race for Lyon County Commission, Board of County Commissioners, District 1 has arrived, and that is the incumbent, Bill Proctor. And welcome, sir. And since you just joined us, you get the first crack at the question here. And you have a minute to respond, if you would, please, and then we'll go down the line here. Mr. Proctor, what is the number one issue, to your way of thinking, affecting District 1 and why?
Poverty, no doubt. Thank you for the question, and good afternoon to my colleagues. Poverty is the number one thing. Access to jobs, educational training, health care, all of the indicators suggesting people who are struggling. I brought here today this book, which comes in the aftermath of 3 books which I compiled in 2019, and it's called Tackling Poverty and Inequities, a report on Lyon County's efforts to engage, revitalize, and invest in 32304 neighborhoods and beyond. There is no doubt that this data is complete, it's competent, and it illustrates the difficulty of almost 2 worlds of divide in Lyon County and the rest of the county.
Very good. Same question for you, Donna Pearl Cotterell. What do you consider to be the number one issue impacting District 1 and why?
Well, I absolutely agree with Commissioner Proctor that poverty is the main issue. The median income in the 32304 zip code, which resides in District 1, is $24,000 a year, and that's less than half the average for most Floridians, which the median income for most Floridians is $55,660. And believe it or not, 14.1% of those living in 32304 have a bachelor's degree or higher and are still not able to make a living wage. Americans living below the poverty level face a wide range of unique challenges. Many are struggling with basic needs such as food, housing, and health care. And these problems are only more compounded by poverty. And so we, as a people, as residents in Lyon County, have a responsibility for those who are living in poverty to help them. And I hope to be able to do that in this seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrence Barber, you get to finish us off on that question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the question. I would also echo what the other candidates said about the poverty in District 1. To kind of bring it to the forefront, District 1 is a predominantly Black district. The inhabitants of that district are predominantly Black. What District 1 lacks is the infrastructure to sustain equitable Black businesses within Black neighborhoods. I think that there's an illusion of inclusion when it comes to District 1 and development. I think that the community there has become so impoverished that now the value is being seen by those on the outside. When we talk about things like the Frenchtown revitalization, I'd like to also point out that Frenchtown historically was a business hub. It was a conglomerate of Black-owned businesses which promoted vitality in that district. Right now, what's left are the remnants of the Frenchtown neighborhood. So I want to point that out, that when we talk about economic development, we must have the infrastructure support.
Thank you.
Okay, Terrence, you'll start our next round, and the question will have a response period of 1:30 seconds. Do you believe the County Commission is doing all it should to support affordable housing options? Please discuss. Terrence Barber.
I do commend the County Commission for the work they have done and the work that we shall continue to do. I think that we have to kind of look at the elephant in the room, and we can't say that we are helping out with affordable housing when we're displacing poor people from communities such as the Orange Avenue apartment complex. When we have developments coming up, or projected developments coming up on Ridge Road, and of course, I have a lot of family that lives in that district, and right now, their means of affordable housing are trailer parks, and these trailer parks aren't always the most suitable living conditions to work, live, and play, and that's what we want in our neighborhoods. Correct? Everyone wants to be able to work, live. I mean, even if you can't work near your neighborhood, you would love to be able to go out to dinner. There's certain infrastructures that add that quality of life. So when it comes to affordable housing, no, I do not think that we're doing all that we can do. I think that the matter has to be addressed. I think that we can't refer to new developments as muskrat experiments, and that putting too many people in one place will automatically drive crime up. I think that people in my district should have high-speed internet and all the other amenities in other districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Pearl Cotterell will go to you next. Same question. Do you believe the County Commission is doing all it should to support affordable housing options?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Irwin. It's a very important. Okay. It's a very important question because, as I mentioned, the median income makes it nearly impossible to be able to meet those basic needs like housing. And if we're not building affordable housing, we're displacing more families. And I know, as a woman with 3 degrees, the wages that I earned over the years, oftentimes I was trying to make ends meet by getting a second job. If I'm a mom with 3 kids and trying to pay the rent and pay the utilities, buy food for those children on a median income of $24,000, it's nearly impossible. And believe it or not, in my neighborhood, I've met folks who are homeless. One woman who's living in a vacant apartment, raising her kids in a vacant apartment, a vacant building with no electricity. So we definitely have to address the housing problem, look into tiny homes or container homes, air property, where folks who live in the neighborhood will be able to afford to have a home, a permanent home.
Thank you, Donna. Bill Proctor.
Thank you very
You
much.
get to round us out.
The county, in my guesstimation, is not doing all that it can to address the variables of affordable housing. Yet it should be understood that the county has no statutory mandate to be a broker of housing, a real estate agency of housing. Be very clear that the county, in terms of affordable housing, we do not set the interest rates. We do not set the prices of homes as they escalate. We have no authority. In fact, I can't even control the hair on my head that's falling out. I got no control. And we have as little control over interest in market factors, which in America, real estate has largely been driven by the private markets and has not been controlled, with the exception of inclusionary housing elements, of which we allow developers to buy and purchase their way out of the inclusionary. We can set zoning types for certain kinds of housing, which usually is multifamily and those things, but we've not exhausted what we can do. But we don't have the responsibility to do that at all.
Thank you, Bill.
Given the intensity of the economic development and economic disparity issues that you have already identified in District 1, we've got a series of questions that we want to pose to each one of you, and that's starting with you, Mr. Barber, here. And each have a minute to respond to the initial question, and then I've got some follow-ups right on top of that. So please be forewarned. Numerous neighborhoods within Tallahassee, Lyon County are struggling with poverty, as we mentioned. What role should local economic development efforts and development incentives play in promoting more equitable prosperity? And what's one specific plan that you would implement to make meaningful progress in this generational challenge, Mr. Barber?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I think that when we look at our neighborhoods and the equity in those neighborhoods, from a commission standpoint, we have to address the air property first and foremost in those neighborhoods. We have to implement a better probate program. If you look at the county of Alachua down in Gainesville, they have a robust program in which to help out with the air properties. Of course, our probate attorneys can be very expensive. I lost my mother about 23 months ago, and we had to go through this process, and it's educating the public on the processes prior to the passing of a loved one. A lot of times in our community, we don't have living wills, we don't have trust, we don't have paperwork or documentation in place for when things like this happen. So I think that to address that issue, we need to first start educating our public and making sure that they know what they're entitled to and and also bearing some of the brunt of the cost of some of those processes. Thank you.
Okay, follow-up number one, Mr. Barber. More and more developers are eyeing South Tallahassee. How do you balance a desire for investment or reinvestment in South City with concerns by residents who, in many cases, feel they are being, priced out of certain areas? 45 seconds, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm not against development, but I also would like to interject that the residents of the South Side, they like nice things as well. We like healthy eating places. We like to have activity in our community. We like to go skating. We love nice parks. We love nice things. And I think that we should not wait until we've displaced. The indigenous is a word I hate, but a lot of times used on the dais. I think that we can't wait until the indigenous people are displaced from a community to then add infrastructure. It's like it's an afterthought at that point.
Okay, another follow-up, sir, if you would, please. We've heard an awful lot about workforce and the jobs crisis in Tallahassee and Lyon County. But how do we bring new jobs to Lyon County, particularly when new development is often criticized as changing the character of the county?
I think to bring new jobs, I think we first have to address the workforce. I think that we have to start better training our youth, better training our local citizens to be ready for the workforce. Right now, this community is characterized as a college town. And I submit that this is not just a college town. We have right now we have jobs. I've spoken to numerous small business owners right here in this community, and right now it's hard to fill the positions that they have, for whatever that reason may be. But I mean, post-pandemic, you would think that someone had taken time to kind of think this out, so we're better prepared for when that does come.
All right, sir. Thank you. And our final follow-up here. Homelessness is also becoming a much more visible problem in Lyon County. What is one thing that we could do to help on that front?
I think that we first have to recognize that homelessness is now becoming more visible in other parts of Tallahassee. When the homeless shelter sat on the corner of Tennessee and Macomb Street, right in the heart of Frenchtown, homelessness was very prevalent in District 1 and in the Frenchtown neighborhood, in the Frenchtown area. I think that until we address homelessness head on, put it at the forefront, I think that what Renee Miller and City Walk, Urban Mission, all these different, high level debates that they're having, I think that if someone else sees that void, we should also see it as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Donna Pearl Cottrell, we have those same questions lined up for you too. First, the umbrella 1-minute response, please. With all the neighborhoods within Tallahassee and Lyon County struggling with poverty, what role should local economic development efforts and development incentives play in promoting more equitable prosperity? And what is one specific plan that you would implement to make meaningful progress in this generational challenge?
Thank you for the question. I am going to address the elephant in the room. As Mr. Barber had said, we have the Office of Economic Vitality that administered our penny local sales tax to be able to help economically in our neighborhoods, but they decided to give $27 million to FSU, tied in a bow. Our pennies that folks voted for and voted for again in 2014, we didn't expect our pennies to go to a well-funded, state-funded university, because those dollars could have gone to, say, 2,000 people, could have got $10,000 loans. Folks who don't ordinarily have the credit worthiness to get a loan could have opened up a small business. Imagine that. 2,000 new small businesses would have brought more money into the coffers as well as to help support our economy.
Thank you, ma'am. 45-second follow-up, if you would. More and more developers looking at the South Side, and how do you do that balance, the desire for investment or reinvestment in South City with concerns by residents that could ultimately wind up displacing them?
It's a shame that we have to look to big developers for solutions to housing issues. We have so many beautiful, you call them shotgun shacks, saddlebag houses in the South Side as well as in Frenchtown that could be rehabbed. And if they can't be rehabbed, that footprint could hold a tiny home or a container home. You can buy a container home, one of these old trailer beds, for $6,500. Imagine if you could, as a family, create a home for less than $10,000 on a footprint that may have been left by your family members. So there are solutions. There are ways to work around using big developers to clear cut, tear down, and remove homes rather than renovating and rebuilding homes.
Thank you, ma'am. On the next follow-up here, workforce, jobs crisis, all that we've heard so much about. But how do we bring new jobs to Lyon County, especially when the new development that we're talking about is often criticized as changing the character of the county?
And that's a really interesting question, because a lot of people, when they think jobs, they think factories, manufacturing. A lot of that is not coming here. But what is here is a cottage industry. A lot of folks who make their own goods, who service folks through whether it's cleaning homes or lawn care. And as Mr. Barber said, it doesn't take a college degree to do those types of things. And if we can teach people to use their own skills and talents and their ability to make a better life, I think that's the way to go.
Okay, ma'am. And final follow-up here. With homelessness becoming such a visible problem in Lyon County, one thing that we could do to help out on that front, in your estimation?
That's a really another good question. I myself have a leased building, and we took it upon ourselves as a nonprofit to open up a cold weather shelter. Whether or not people thought it was the right thing to do, on one of those nights that was extremely cold, someone died in front of the community co-op market on Appalachia Parkway. We had 6 people there that night. So people think about the masses. Right now, on any given night, 621 individuals, 118 of those children are homeless. We have to do more. We have to do better.
Thank you, Ms. Cotterill. And we wrap up this segment with you, Mr. Proctor, here with all of the neighborhoods within Tallahassee, Lyon County struggling with poverty. That economic development efforts and the incentives packages we were talking about, what should that play as far as a role in promoting more equitable division of prosperity, and what one specific plan you would endorse to make that happen? 1 minute, please, sir.
We should have our area banks to, in particular those which we bank with from the city of Tallahassee, Lyon County, our universities, our banks from the school district. Those institutions should set aside monies designated for investment in homes. That's essentially needed. That requires communications. It requires thinking differently than what we've done before. I believe the effort to bring Amazon here in our community was exceptional, and going after businesses. But I hold the philosophy that why do we have to go after if we learn to expand and to help the reach of existing businesses? So I'm not altogether sold on the idea that we have to get somebody from outside to come here if we invest in helping those who already exist here.
All right, sir, 45-second follow-up here with more and more developers that are looking at the south side of Tallahassee. How do you balance that desire for more economic development with the concerns by residents who are already in the area that somehow they'll be displaced, they will lose out in the deal?
Well, the Tallahassee Housing Authority have an exceptional model in how they gave and are giving first right of refusal to tenants who have lived in South City, who've lived in their properties, and they've given them the first right to return to be members of the revitalized community. I think that's a very good approach. We need a community engager for companies like Horton, which is coming down on Woodville Highway, and to make sure that the community is engaged. And I'm not altogether sure what we can do when affordable housing is starting in excess of $300,000. And the existing dynamics of income captured in this book, there's just a gap that I can't see resolution in the immediate future.
All right, sir. In regards to workforce, the jobs crisis that's already been mentioned, how do we bring new jobs to Lyon County, particularly when that new development is often critiqued as potentially changing the character of the area that it moves into?
Well, very definitely we have to listen to persons who have been, use that word, indigenous residents for a long time. We have to engage the investment that they have made over time, yet to balance who those persons coming here might be, we have to loosen our collar in Tallahassee. We've always been a prissy jobs. We talk about the Innovation Park. We talk about the $75,000 type job. We need blue collar ideas, and we probably need staff that see it just like that.
Thank you, sir. Final follow-up here for 45 seconds here. Homelessness becoming that visible problem that we have already addressed here. What do you see as a primary response to resolving that issue?
It would be my idea that we create campuses, homeless campuses with dignity, with respect. The East Side needs a campus. The West Side needs a campus. And we needn't do what we've done in the past just to allow the homeless shelter to be the godfather of what occurs, and then the county pumps a little money in and everybody else gives them a little money. But we need a campus. And the problem with homelessness is that it's perceived that it clashes with property values. And once you get that clash with existing neighborhoods that this was going to bring their value down, nobody wants that drop. So we have some work to do.
Thank you. All right, our next question is a variation and inspired from the Urban League. By our count on Tallahassee.com, 12 people have been killed, 44 have been injured, and 70 serious shootings this year in the capital city and county. Just last night, 2 people were injured in 2 drive-by shootings an hour apart. What specific initiatives will you take to make our communities safe from crime? Something that hasn't been tried before, as this is certainly something we've been grappling with for quite some time. You'll get 1:30 on this very important question, and we will start with you, Donna Pearl-Cotterell.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Hatfield. There are many solutions, and as a former educator, it starts, believe it or not, with reading, literacy, because they're building prisons based on third-grade reading scores. And one, we are very low in our reading levels in Tallahassee, in Lyon County. And two, we're losing our kids. Our students are dropping out at the middle school level. So when they're out there in the streets and they're not at school, we have to find things for them to do. And whether it's a retention program, I know there's several, but how about some art-based community programs? I mentioned this at the city budget meeting because we, as a city, we fund a lot of arts-based programs, but very few in the Black community and even fewer in District 1. And I, as a kid who was experimenting with all the wrong things at the age of 13, at 15, was introduced to theater, and it changed my life. Out of 7 children, I was the only one that went to college, finished college, and I have 2 master's degrees. And I attribute that to a summer theater program. So imagine if we had art-based programs in our communities where kids could exercise their creative talents. Not everybody's good at sports. There are some people who can use those creative talents to better themselves.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor.
Yes, sir.
Same question.
Clearly, Sheriff McNeil has just been a revolutionary with respect to understanding that we cannot law enforce our way out of crime. And his boys and men and boys initiative that have been brought forward is excellent. Mental health is something that is ignored. And when you look at these crimes and you do the analysis and you look at the 5-year study that the sheriff made, the homicide, what's that thing called?
Anatomy of a
homicide. You find confluent elements: poverty, low school preparation, and you find mental health. And when you look at the jail population, a third of the jail population is on mental health treatment. So we have issues that we've ignored. And then COVID. Experts are saying that in the aftermath of COVID, these mass shootings occurring across the nation, behavior we've not seen, maybe we've got to go deeper and look into corrective steps to lead us out of COVID. And then finally, I think social media, being aggressive and having activities. I'm not even sure the status of the YMCA, but having everybody on board from the recreation department, the YMCA, and having constructive activities. And of course, I do believe that the church, there's room for the church to be a moral thermostat.
Thank you. Terrence L. Barber, you have the last answer on this question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. By our count, 12 people have been killed, 44 injured, 70 serious shootings this year in the capital city and county. What specific initiatives will you make to keep our communities safe from crime?
I think that culturally, right now, a lot of the violence that are plaguing our communities of color are, once again, symptomatic of poverty. I think that we have to start better training our workforce. I think that we get inside of the county school system and implement programming, whereas some of these young adults have other things to look forward to post-graduation than just simply college. I think that we prepare them for the workforce immediately. I think that we get inside of these. I do agree with Commissioner Proctor that mental health issues are a huge issue. I just memorialized the passing of a good friend of mine who was killed on South Adams Street while at work with his child, just cutting hair, just working. And now it's the 3rd anniversary of his death. I have family members who have been killed right here in this community. And to be honest, the gun violence in our communities has always been prevalent. It's just become so much more politicized now because new developments are coming into those areas. And of course, we have to show more initiative now because we want to welcome the guest. to either live amongst the indigenous residents of that area or live once we displace them. But I think that we need to get a grapple on this. We need to start talking to these youth. We need to start better communicating. Right now, what we get from our current leadership, there's a lot of answers, but they're not listening. And that's my job as a commissioner, is to listen to what the community needs and try to fill those voids and bridge those gaps. That's
Thank
my
you.
answer.
Bill Proctor, this question is for you. You'll have 1 minute for your response. Please discuss whether you feel the current ethics code for Lyon County government and for Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency are adequate, especially regarding lobbyist regulation. Would you support independent ethics oversight of both the County Commission and/or Blueprint?
Well, the word ethics is such a broad parameter. You could look at it from commission conduct, staff conduct, and I think that with respect to the Matlow seeking declaratory judgment, can the staff meet and not be in the sunshine? Can they make $1 million decisions and frame a request of commissioners to agree on that they have dealt with, but the public has been excluded from? So there is that angle. I can only speak from the county side. The county has had mental ethics issues. The Blueprint, if you mix us with the city of Tallahassee, when the county and city joined, you might say that our counterparts had a lot more issues related to ethics. And as a county commissioner, I see no conduct on our parts which warrant that per se.
Thank you, Bill Proctor. Terrence Barber, we'll go to you next. Same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Please discuss whether you feel the current ethics codes for Lyon County Lyon County government and for Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency are adequate, especially regarding lobbyist registration. Would you support independent ethics oversight of either or both?
My short answer to this is I think that ethics is a personal decision. I think that first and foremost, we need to be able to trust that the people we elect into these positions actually understand the difference between right and wrong. I will say that I would have to give more insight to that, but at the same time, I do think it's dead wrong to present a certain entity with a certain amount of money and then accept money from organizations or affiliates within that same entity. I think it is wrong. Is it illegal? I don't think so, but ethically, absolutely yes.
Thank you, Terrence Barber. Donna Pearl Cotterell, you're next.
Thank you. When it comes to Lyon County government, I'll say they're doing a better job than the city. We've seen some very mean-spirited ways of shutting down folks when it comes to talking ethics. And when it comes to Blueprint, even Commissioner Proctor himself called out Mayor Daley in terms of accepting money from FSU, big donors and others who were trying to make sure that that money went to FSU instead of to the community. And that, to me, on its face, doesn't look good ethically. And I know Commissioner Matlow and Commissioner Porter have had those discussions with the city. And in terms of the county, it may be not as blatant, but we also know that Scott Maddox went to prison and supported Pingree's, I'm going to say, appointment. And the deal was sealed over some alcoholic beverages.
Thank you.
Can I get a chance to curl back on that for about 10 seconds?
10 seconds.
My point with Mayor Daley is that he deemed it would be voter suppression for him to have not accepted that money. That was my concern.
Thank you. All right. We are going to stay with the stadium here. And Terrence L. Barber, you'll have the first shot at this question. Funds from the penny sales tax program known as Blueprint are required to be allocated into different pots and used for different purposes. While most of the funds are to be spent for infrastructure, such as roads, sidewalks, parks, 12% of those funds are to be spent for economic development projects having a, quote, general public purpose of improving local economies. What was your position on the recent allocation of $27 million to renovate Doak Campbell Stadium from the money required to be spent for economic development projects? Please explain your answer. 1 minute.
1 minute. Thank you so much for the answer. I think that we can sum up our decision-making into two different categories. I think it would be the reasons and the results. And in this particular matter, the reasons don't count. I mean, I've heard several different reasons from current sitting commissioners as to why they voted in the direction that they did, but the actual results say that it was not fiscally feasible nor financially responsible to do it. And I think we also must look at rewards and regrets. I think that once you see you've made a terrible decision, yet you don't regret it, maybe there are some rewards being given that we know nothing about. That's my answer.
Thank you. Donna Pearl-Cotterell, same question.
Thank you, Mr. Hatfield. 1/3 of those funds that were given to Doak, they're tied up in bonds and financial services, which means that the banks and the financial institutions are getting richer, not the people who it was meant for. When that tax was created, it was created for those communities, in particular like District 1, who needed it. And it's morally obscene for a stadium to get luxury upgrades while the folks are in the same zip code that is the poorest zip code in the state are suffering. And people need to get a hand up. Our residents are being ignored. It took away from those who needed it the most, and that's what makes it so sad. And it's illustrative of what's wrong with local leadership today. Other development projects show that OEV is bending over backwards to please developers. Counties like Pinellas are actually buying land to build affordable housing with their local penny tax.
Thank you.
No other county is fixing up stadiums with their local penny tax.
Thank you. Bill Proctor, you supported the project. Same question.
There are a number of ways of looking at this, and probably based upon your vantage point, they're all correct. The vantage point that I look at is that 80% of Florida State's football team since last 20, 30 years is made up of African Americans. It's economic development, and I find nothing wrong with investing in a program where the benefit for boys who otherwise may not have a chance at a higher education, they get to come through Florida State. It's economic development for every young person that goes to college, in particular those who specifically would not get into FSU without access to a football program. FSU had $20 million designated in the 2014 tax. We had $20 million for the Madison Mile project. The cost of their that center went up to 60-some thousand. They couldn't do it. They asked permission. Florida A&M, who we gave $10 million, was never approved by voters. But $20 million for FSU's economic development had been.
Thank you. A 30-second.
May I respond to 10 seconds?
Sure,
to that?
10 seconds.
I would also like to point out that, with all due respect, everything that Mr. Proctor is pointing out in no way dignifies a return on our investment. If FSU has had 6 African-American players that are actually from Lyon County grace their football field and go on to do wonderful things with their lives, I think that we can point that out, but that was not post $27 million.
Thank you. And Donna Pearl-Cotterell, you have thoughts on this really quickly? 10
Very
seconds, and then I'll
quickly,
let you
yes.
close on that, Mr. Proctor.
Thank you. Yes, most of those boys don't live here, and building wealth off of 1% of the boys who play football who actually end up in the NFL, most of them don't come out as millionaires. And then siding with a few boosters and top administrators is not the way we should be doing
Commissioner
business.
Proctor to close, and then I've got a 130-second follow-up on this.
Certainly, I'm very proud of the young men who've come through Florida State's football. We've had over 156 or 60 guys going to the NFL. It speaks for itself. That's economic development in my eyes.
So, obviously this was one of the most contentious issues to come before Blueprint in almost its history. Was there a middle ground here? And why couldn't we reach it? Commissioner Proctor, we'll start with you and then we'll work our way through. 30 seconds.
There's always a middle ground. And the thing got polarized so quickly. We were invited to a town hall meeting at Lincoln neighborhood. and people were sitting on all across and had decided that it was either or. And once the public polarized the issue as either or, we all ran for the corner that we were in, and there was little room left for a middle ground. So I accept some responsibility in not articulating or finding a middle ground, but it was politicized, the community was up in arms, and we fled.
Thank you. Terrence L. Barber, same question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so was there a middle ground with the stadium issue? And if so, why couldn't we reach it?
I'd like to point out that City Commissioner Matlow did try to amend and try to garner some sort of middle ground. I also would like to point out that as a commissioner, we are to be stewards of the public's trusted investment. And I think that with not one person on the county commission, no one on this dais taking the initiative to try and at least leverage our investment with Florida State or even FAMU. We got SBI and Jim Moran here, and we have struggling small businesses. There was something to be made there.
Donna Pearl Cotterell, same question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hatfield. There is a middle ground. If they base their vote on the fact that FAMU got $10 million, why not give FSU $10 million and let the other $10 million go for the economic development that was talked about? It takes 20 years for Blueprint to get $1 billion. FSU gets that every year in their state budget. They didn't need $20 million. And if we wanted to be fair, because FAMU got $20 million, we could have split that and gave them 10, and the rest could have gone to the community.
Thank you. All right, we're going to change up the pace a little bit here, and we're going to do our lightning round. The way the lightning round works is it is a simpler question, and you get basically, most cases, it's a yes or no, and a chance to explain in one sentence. Now, of course, you can use the word and because, but we're hopeful that you won't string along too many of those. We will be starting with Donna Pearl Cotterell on this. How many county commission meetings have you attended, and how many have you spoken at, and on what topics?
Good question. I have been to 2 county commission meetings. I believe I spoke at both. I've been to several Blueprint meetings, I would say, over the last year and a half.
And the topics?
The topics?
Yep.
Mainly Blueprint.
Okay.
But
Thank
also, what can we do with that $27 million?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Commissioner Proctor, I don't know how relevant this question is. I certainly know you've spoken at many of the commission meetings.
Yes, sir. I'm a little guilty of having been to several meetings, county commission meetings, city commission meetings, transportation planning meetings, Blueprint meetings. Just to be clear about it, historically, in the history of this county, that probably is not another person who's attended more meetings than I have.
All right, Terrence L. Barber, same question.
Throughout the course, I've attended several meetings, actually. At a budget meeting earlier today and bumped into Mr. Proctor.
And the topics?
And the topics, of course, range all the way back from neighborhood first programs. There's a plethora. There's too many to name. Of course, I was attending meetings far before the FSU vote.
Okay. Bill Proctor, the next question you'll start with. As a county commissioner, you work with your counterparts in the city commissioner. Toward that end, who will you endorse for mayor of Tallahassee and why? One sentence.
I will not be making an endorsement for the mayor of Tallahassee. And that today, you said we could use the and conjunctive. Today at the county commission meeting, we did adopt a 5% increase for our workers. And a $15 minimum wage, which this commissioner led the charge. Thank you.
But no endorsement for mayor?
No.
Any reason why not?
Because neither one of them going to endorse me. So when you get their endorsement for this race, let me know.
Terrence L. Barber, same question.
Man, Mr. Commissioner Proctor is sharp today. He actually stole my answer. I have no intention at this juncture of endorsing other candidates while I'm a candidate myself. I wish them both well. And if I were to endorse either or, I would say it would probably be the one that endorses me. Thank you.
Okay, Donna Pearl Cotterell.
Thank you for the question. I am one who I'm not ashamed of, my favorite, and it's someone who is has lived in the community and knows the community, especially District 1, very well, Whitfield Leland III.
Thank you. Obviously, there's always the top of the ticket. This time it's the governor's race. Who is your pick for governor? Terrence L. Barber.
The governor's race is going to be pretty interesting. We have Chris coming back out to Florida. Nikki Fried is blazing trails. I'm not certain of any other candidates in that race. I think it's a little premature to make a decision on that, but may the best candidate win.
Donna Pearl-Cotterill.
That's a tough one because I believe that women should be in charge. I'm just going to say that.
In charge of what?
Everything.
All right, very good. Bill Proctor.
Charlie Chris.
All right, thank you. And a reason?
His experience, he's leading in the polls, and he speaks my language.
Thank you. Are there any limits on who you will accept campaign contributions from? One sentence. Donna Pearl-Cotterill.
Could you repeat the question?
Are there any limits on who you will accept campaign contributions from?
I will not be accepting any campaign contributions from any big developers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Proctor.
I won't accept any from the Proud Boys.
Terrence L. Barber.
I've turned down about as much as I've raised.
Okay. Can you give me an example of one you've turned down?
I don't want to name names.
Okay.
Of course, everyone who has donated is public record.
Okay.
But please tell those that he turned down that I'll accept them,
Absolutely.
if they're not the Proud Boys.
Aside from family, who do you view as your local mentor in life and in pursuing this seat? Bill Proctor.
A mentor, my mother, actually. I just have to go with my mother and my father. Those are primary teachers.
Terrence L. Barber.
There's several. My mom, 42 years at the county. My dad, a local business owner. My uncle, who ran this same exact race when I was in the 10th grade in 1998. So, yes.
Okay. Donna Pearl-Cotterill.
Could you repeat the question,
Sure.
please?
Aside from family, who do you view as your local mentor in life and in pursuing this seat?
That's a great question. I would say locally, Dot Emmon Johnson. She's a trailblazer and still doing wonderful things for the community.
All right. Terrence L. Barber, name one specific thing the county is not spending enough money on and one thing the county is spending too much money on.
Right now, I think too much money is going into recreation. Right now, we have another $12 million slated to redevelop the fairgrounds. I don't know anyone with a job at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
It's been said that the economic development of the fairgrounds and impact on this community is almost synonymous with Doak Campbell Stadium. I think that data is skewed.
Okay. One thing the county's not spending enough money on and one thing the county's spending too much money on. Donna Pearl-Cotterill.
The county's not spending enough money to help those living in poverty, and it's spending too much money on big, giant housing that no one can afford who's living on a median income of $24,000.
Thank you. Bill Proctor. Same question.
County is spending too much money on trees and stuff like that. And the county is not spending enough money with our minority businesses. And I'm disappointed, it remains so, that commensurate to our population, we're not doing enough business with Black-owned businesses.
Thank you. This is a nonpartisan race, but these days partisan politics are unavoidable in all things. On the political spectrum, from extreme liberal to extreme conservatism and everything in between, where do you define yourself? We're starting with you, Commissioner Proctor.
I'm everywhere, whatever the issue requires. Sometimes it needs me to be conservative. Sometimes it needs me to be extremely progressive. Sometimes it needs me to just jump up and down and act wild.
Thank you.
So I'll wild out if it's needed.
Terrence L. Barber.
Hey, it's hard to define myself within the box of any political affiliation. I will say that I'm a registered Democrat. Most of the candidates that I have agreed with and supported just so happen to be Democrats. If so, that would be my answer.
Okay. Donna Pearl-Cotterill.
Most people who know me would most likely say I'm very progressive. Thank you.
Thank you. One reader emailed us this question. It seems appropriate as we are holding this forum at the same time as the January 6th hearings. Do you believe that Donald Trump had the 2020 elections stolen from him? Terrence L. Barber.
I like to live my life in terms of think and not believe. And I do not have enough information on that subject in order to form an educated
Thank you.
opinion or answer.
Donna Pearl Cotterill.
I have enough information to say no. The election was not stolen. Thank you.
Bill Proctor.
Trump's Attorney General Barr, has concluded, and the Justice Department's research has said there was no insufficiencies of right rules that were followed, that his election was stolen. So I'd have to side with Mr. Barr.
Thank you. Terrence L. Barber, you get the last question of our lightning round. What is the single biggest thing, just one thing, you've done in this community to make the county a better place to live?
Well, since 2016, prior to me being a business owner for most of my life, my focus has been the economic vitality of small businesses within this community, more specifically, minority businesses in this community. I've moved the needle for said businesses, especially during the COVID pandemic when money was on the line.
Donna Pearl Cotterill, same question.
I would have to say the nonprofit theater company that I founded in Massachusetts, I brought it down here with me to Tallahassee, and I'm grateful that so many young thespians are saying thank you for exposing me to theater.
Bill Proctor.
I would say that before me is this $1 billion bill, and it represents the amount of dollars been invested in District 1. And I think that cumulatively, my value has been my voice. And also, when you say the word Bill Proctor, its impact on every facet of life in this community, I have been effective.
Thank you. You guys survived the lightning round. Well done. All right.
I think I got more bolts of lightning on this side than they got. Y'all not dispersing the lightning fair.
Well, let's see. We do have one from our Facebook audience I wanted to pose to everyone because it wasn't included in our original list of questionings, and it has been a perennial issue, particularly in the minority community and low-income neighborhoods of our county for years and years and years. Starting with you, please, Donna Pearl Cotterill. Our high infant and maternal mortality rate that continues to outpace not only in the white community, but also statewide. As a county commissioner, what could you do to address that disparity?
I would love to support more Black women-led doula services, because you're right, it's a national problem. And it's sad that we have a high infant mortality rate multiple times the white community. But if we have Black women servicing or midwifing women who are giving birth, then their chances of having a healthy birth are much greater than if they didn't have those doulas to help them.
Thank you. Terrence L. Barber, same question.
I think that we must understand that access to health care does not always equate to healthy individuals. And I think that until we implement better lifestyles and living habits, and of course, healthy food within, or at least close to, at least walking distance to these Black neighborhoods, I think that we'll continuously have the insufficiencies that we suffer from.
Okay, thank you. And Bill Proctor, you lead us up.
One of the tricky things about Black infant mortality, as perhaps Donna is aware, is that infant mortality disregards social status, educational status, income status. It happens to all Black women. So when you say, well, she was not taking care of herself, she didn't go to the doctor, she didn't get prenatal, blah, blah. It's been synthesized to suggest that racism is a variable, and the stress from racism has been a variable which has affected and impacts infant mortality. And you can deduce that when you look at it affects all, regardless of poverty or education, anything like that. Those are the new thoughts.
Appreciate it.
All right. The county administrator serves at the pleasure of the county commission. Vince Long's been serving as county administrator since 2011. What letter grade would you give to Vince Long this year, and why? What's he done well? What can he do better? Commissioner Proctor, we'll start with you.
Vince Long is a phenomenal administrator. He is among the very best in the state of Florida. You're going to hear more information about Vince Long coming real soon. I've been proud of Vince, his work, his leadership, the way we handled the pandemic disbursement of dollars, creating an agency, a process, a flow of distributing money, holding accountable those persons who've gotten it. The county actually got a national award we received last week for. Also, the chief judge, Judge Shorstrom, came to county commission and gave Vince Long and Alan Rosenwag a plaque. Now, the judge gives out time, the judge gives out harsh sentences, but I've never seen a judge give anybody a plaque for their service. Vince Long achieved that from the chief judge of the Second Judicial Circuit. He gets an A+.
Thank you. Terrence L. Barber, same question.
I've been acquainted with Mr. Long for quite some time. I learned more recently that my uncle, in fact, gave Mr. Long his first job with the county back when he was administrator over the budget. I also learned at that time that sometimes my uncle would visit his mother's house, my grandmother, Lubiana Glenn, up on Colorado Street, and Mr. Long would be at my grandmother's dinner table. I have not studied Mr. Long's voting record enough to draw a conclusion as to his passing or failing, but I will say at this juncture, I think that Mr. Long is a solid individual. Thank him for his service. I thank him for all the work that he does do. And if I were giving out grades, he'd pass.
Thank you.
And why don't we just take a little time out here to say farewell to those listening to the recorded version of our candidates forum on WFSU 88.9 FM, where we're returning to our regular programming, and the balance of this forum and others will be archived on our WFSU and Tallahassee Democrat websites. And we'll once again, and we will before we're over for sure, thank our candidates for taking part, Terrence L. Barber, Donna Pearl Cotterell, and Bill Proctor. Thank you.
We've got a couple more questions before we go to closings. We'll let you all make the closing arguments. You want to ask the next?
I will do so. And this is kind of our favorite question right now. It keeps returning to something that we have certainly addressed before, because recent meetings of the county commission and the Blueprint organization have on occasion become kind of testy affairs, let's face it. How would you assess the level of civility, and what should we be doing as far as potentially something different to bring the temperature of the meeting down just a skosh? And if Donna Pearl Cotterell, if we could ask you that first, please.
Well, thank you for the question. You're right, it is testy. And I believe the temperature of the room is a clear indication that there's something wrong with the system and the way it's being run. And I think that Mr. Matlow actually has initiated a lawsuit to get to the bottom of, I'm going to say, the nastiness of Blueprint. So I think the only real thing that you can do is to find out if there were unethical hiring through Blueprint, but also how money is being spent and who's directing how that money is being spent would help clear up a lot of issues.
Okay, thank you. Bill Proctor, please.
Some of the testiness, I'm the one that added a whole lot of volume to it. I'm from a family where testiness is just part of, sometimes it gets testy. So my threshold level, maybe culture, I don't know, may be different from yours. I'm okay with the meetings. I think what usually happens is that our staff orchestrates meetings and options which bring us to those moments of contention. And then when the staff gets defensive about these are the options, this is what we got to do, it's forcing us to make command that the staff works for us. It's very important for staff to understand the vision and the desires of the commissioners, and not for commissioners to come and have to eat humble pie and bend down, bow down to what the staff is mandating. That's the problem we're having right now. Our staff is not listening and coordinating responses for which we would not have to come there and squabble so much. But as long as they are wrong, I am going to squabble.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Terrence L. Barber.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. What could you potentially do as a Lyon County Commissioner to turn down the degree of vitriol and animosity in blueprint meetings?
Thank you for the question. I would start by saying that building consensus amongst your constituents is a very vital part of being a county commissioner. I think that we must refrain from mistaking movement with progress. We have a lot of politicized issues with a lot of moving pieces, yet still no progress for the actual community that is said to be suffering from these decisions. So I think that until, as commissioners, we kind of learn, it's a give and take world out there. And I think that until we start weighing our options, until we stop being so divisive on such matters that have already been decided on, until they start actually building consensus amongst themselves, then, I mean, all the moving pieces in the world won't create progress unless you have enough moving pieces moving together.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill Proctor, we'll start with you, and you have 1 minute for this response. Climate change can sometimes feel like too distant a concern with all the challenges that we face in our community today. Are there signs of climate change that you see in Lyon County? Who is or may be most affected, and what can we do about it?
Lake Munson's probably a sign of something. All that toxic stuff down at Lake Munson. And I believe it reflects something. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not qualified to know all of those answers. But given the likes of no less of a person than Vice President Al Gore and many other informed environmentalists, leading experts are saying that our climate is changing. It will impact Florida with respect to the rising of our oceans. It will affect food supplies. It will affect species being able to evolve. And so I think it's serious enough. We've set goals at Lyon County to lower the emission of fumes and gas, and I forget the big word, but we have set goals by 2030 to come down with our carbon emissions.
Thank you, Bill Proctor. Terrence Barber, you're next.
Hey, thank you for could you repeat the question?
Yes,
Sorry.
I'd be pleased to. Climate change can sometimes feel like too distant a concern when we're struggling with so many challenges in our community today. What signs are you seeing of climate change in Lyon County? Who is or may be most affected, and what can we do about it?
I think, first of all, that we will all be affected with changes that occur on such a large scale as climate change. I'm no scientist, but I will say as a blue-collar worker that this does not feel like the same sun that we played in as children, but I do not take that as scientific fact. I will also say that anything that we can do to reduce our carbon footprint on the environment, such as the electric buses that we've implemented with the city and other things that we can do, anything that we can do, any sort of preventive maintenance that we can do concerning climate change. And of course, all suggestions to that are welcome.
Thank you. Donna Pearl Cotterell, 1 minute.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. I'm not a scientist, I'll preface it with that. But when we talk about the rainforest being cleared, it's pretty obvious that it's our lungs for the earth. But right here in Tallahassee, we're clear-cutting forests, and the runoff from the northeast is flowing to the south, and Lake Munson, yes, is one of those results of that. But we also know that in the Black community, the environment has always been a concern, whether it's exhaust from the railway system going through our neighborhood or just the lack of infrastructure. But our trees are our lungs here in Tallahassee, and we really want to preserve them and not clear-cut forests for large developers, because it's affecting all of us, and we need those trees to keep our air cooler. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you made it through the questions. So that leaves us with 1 minute and 30 for each of you to speak directly to voters. Why should they vote for you? You'll each have 90 seconds on that, and we're going to start at the top of the order with you, Terrence L. Barber.
First, I want to start out by saying thank you all. Thank you to WFSU. Thank you to the Tallahassee Democrat, League of Women Voters for hosting such a prolific platforms such as these to get the word out and educate voters about all of the candidates. I think that what we need to do, especially in our communities of color, is get out and vote. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure that you are exercising your right to vote. We just celebrated Juneteenth, and freedom was not free. People have fought and died for your right to exercise and be a part of this democratic process. I'm so thankful to sit on this stage today and just ask you for your support and representing a community that I'm born and raised in. My mother, 42 years with the Lyon County Library. My father, business owner right here in this community, giving jobs to people that look just like me. So I'm proud of the progress that this community is making. I'm proud to call Tallahassee my home. I'm proud to call Lyon County the county that cultivated me and all of my brothers, my mother, my father, uncles, nieces, nephews. Now it's time to exercise our right and take back our voice. A lot of times it's good to have a clear voice, but right now what we need is consistent progress. We need people that are going to go into these neighborhoods and talk to those that are most affected by the issues that we face. I think it's time out for the classism that occurs in this community, whether or not you graduated from college, whether or not you're whether we have returning citizens that deserve a quality of life just as those who graduated from the universities. I think that your zip code did not determine the quality that you live in.
Thank you. Donna Pearl Cotterill.
Thank you. I am, I'm going to say once again, Donna Pearl Cotterill, and if I didn't say this before, Pearl is a family name, my mother's middle name, my daughter's middle name, and my middle name. And this Pearl has become irritated, and she's coming out of her shell. So I am one who wants to work with the community. District 1 was actually built for the empowerment of Black people in the community to make a difference. And no one imagined one person to be in that seat forever. And we need a candidate who is ready for a new direction. And I'm the only candidate that can take us where we need to go. We should be investing in Black-owned businesses and bringing prosperity to the South Side as well as to Frenchtown. We can build real projects, real economic growth, and administer our county funds to help the least of those in our community who need real solutions to real problems, everyday problems. And as a person who lives in the district and loves my community, I will be there to support our community every step of the way.
Thank you. Commissioner Proctor, you get to close us out.
Thank you. Al Green made a song a few years ago that I lift up and convey and share with our audience. Let's stay together. My name is Bill Proctor. I have done, I believe, a tremendous role. When I came to the county commission, District 1 was not necessarily regarded fought against with the levels of fight which I have experienced. I'm grateful to be a long descendant of the Proctor family of Lyon County, dating back to the 1700s, Antonio, George, John, down to Bill Proctor. And I'm also grateful for a family legacy that speaks to constructive contribution to this community for hundreds of years, over 200 years. I'm also wonderfully just fortunate and thank God for the years that I've served. And I believe that it's very important, contrary to Mr. Barber's comments, that we have the number 18 ranked public PWI in the United States. We have the number 1 ranked public university, HBCU, in the United States. And I dare to believe that with those 2 economic engines, we need a commissioner who has a substantive amount of education to understand this big economic engine, to engage it, to understand and to make demands of it with our community. And I remain to be that person among the 3 who are running. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Well, we thank the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, the Tallahassee Democrat, and the folks at WFSU Public Media for this program today. And you can find a replay of the forum on our YouTube pages Tallahassee.com, and WFSU.org. The recorded broadcast is set for this Thursday, June 23rd at 11 in the morning. That's on WFSU 88.9 FM. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody.
Our next forum will be at 1 p.m. on Thursday, June 23rd, and it will be with the 3 candidates for Lyon County Commission District 3. That's Rick Miner, Joey Lamar, and Damon Victor.
I'd like to add a special thanks to all the people behind the cameras and in the control room of WFSU. I've been doing these forums for a while, and it's come a long way from being in the conference room of the Tallahassee Democrat. So thank you all. You can look for our special election section of the Tallahassee Democrat with interviews with all the candidates on the ballot, which will be printed and inserted on Sunday, August 7th. Y'all will be hearing from us. Thank you all for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too,
I want to
Jim.
thank you all for this room. This is the first time it's never been freezing cold to me.